needs, not ours. How do we do that? We start by using the same towers as the big guys, the exact same towers. We then create rate plans designed for your usage. The fact is, we can offer you an unlimited plan with the same network quality for less because we understand how you use wireless services. Our plans start at just $20 a month. And forget trying to chat with robots. You'll get 100% US-based award-winning customer service when you need help. Come find out how wireless should be and join the millions who've made the switch.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
Hey parents, you don't need the latest gizmo, slang, or clothes to be a perfect parent, because kids in foster care don't need perfection. They need you. For more information on how you can adopt, go to adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Ad Council.
You're tuned in to Money Matters Boston, 1120 AM WBNW. This is WBNW, 1120 AM, the Money Matters Radio Network. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM, Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Mark Vonner is the CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, having served for nearly 20 years, and we are so thrilled to have him and his company as a key partner and the presenting sponsor of the DAV 5K Boston. Mark comes from a proud military family, including his father Victor and his brother Timmy. Mark talks often about how serving his country was one of the greatest achievements of his life, and that's one of the key reasons that he chooses to give back to this special community. Mark is honored to continue his legacy that his father started when he built Veterans Development Corporation. Working to help many disabled veterans and their families has become a lifelong goal for Mark, and it's why he's taken the time to fully support the DAV Department of Massachusetts. You can join Mark Vonner and Veterans Development Corporation and help our great American heroes today by making a donation or becoming a sponsor. Simply visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and our guide this month is titled Inflation and Your Retirement Plan. Mike, why is it so important for retirees to account for inflation in their planning?
Yeah, massively important, and I think any retiree over any course of history will tell you that. And when you experience inflation, when you're on a fixed income, it's tremendously difficult. But even small changes in the rate of inflation, or seemingly small ones, can really lead to massive changes. For example, if you're facing 2% inflation, that means that prices roughly double every 35 years. If you're looking at 4% inflation instead, those same prices double only in 17 years. A huge change to your budget.
And obviously, this also then influences your overall spending habits and your withdrawal rate over time. These are things that you have to account for in your planning. You can't just assume that you're going to necessarily see the same kind of inflation that you've seen previously in retirement.
Yeah, look, I think generally speaking, over the course of the last 20 years, while there have been massive drawdowns in equities, the inflation figure has remained relatively stable. If you're worried about something that could look different from that over the course of the next 20 years, then it's important to really consider what that would mean for you.
Our guide this month is titled Inflation and Your Retirement Plan, and there are two ways you can request it. The first is by calling 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com. That phone number again is 800-393-4001, or request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We pride ourselves on being able to support veterans in their time of greatest need, ensuring they receive the protections they deserve. For over 100 years, the DAV of Massachusetts has helped thousands of veterans with housing, transportation, and medical assistance, and you can help too. Please visit dav5k.boston and make a donation today. That's dav5k.boston.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti.
Chuck, Mark, and Tucker with you here as we continue through the week. And this morning, we continue to get more economic data with the Producer Price Index out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. And what we saw there was some better than expected numbers overall when you look at the headline number coming in with actually a 0.1% decline for the month versus expectations of a 0.3% increase. Core number coming in at a 0.1% decline for the month as well, with a 0.3% increase expected. And ultimately, what we're seeing is not really much movement in the bond market for the reason that basically PPI is, first of all, no one really understands what it does, if we're being honest. A lot of people look at it and think it means something that it doesn't. But the other piece is the reason why people care about PPI is simply because there are some items in it that are pass-throughs to the personal consumption expenditures inflation data, the PCE data, which the Fed does pay close attention to. And in this report, the PCE pass-throughs were not as muted as the overall headline or core numbers. And so as such, it doesn't really change the projection for PCE, which is what matters when you're trying to determine what Fed policy is. So this is why, hey, despite this, much cooler than expected number, the 10-year Treasury is off half a basis point. Is seeing its yield move down half a basis point today. And there's just not a ton of movement on the back of this. So I think you can look at this and say, yeah, it's good that this reading came in cooler than expected, but it's not going to have a huge influence on Fed policy simply because the stuff that does influence Fed policy didn't come in as cool as the rest of the report.
Yeah, nice summary.
other takeaways from this, and not other takeaways, but just other items that are questions that I think are worth asking. If we look at this report, and remember what the producer price index measures, it's a backwards view of the CPI, where the CPI measures, hey, how much did you pay for something? This measures what did producers receive for something, wholesalers, what did they receive for something? And so the question that I think is worth asking is, okay, given some of the upward input cost pressures that we're seeing, and you can see them in this report, by the way, if you look at intermediate goods prices as opposed to final goods prices, you see intermediate goods prices rising in this report while final goods fall. The question that you ask is, why are end buyers not paying more at the same pace that intermediate buyers are paying? And it raises a question of, hey, is there a demand issue? But also, when I look out there at the demand side of the equation, for consumer spending, credit card data continues to be very good. Retail data has been better the last couple months. Bank data is not really showing anything that is out of line. And so part of me, on one hand, you look at the jobs data and you say, yeah, based on what we're seeing in the labor market, there's a convincing case that the Fed should begin a cutting cycle. On the other hand, you look at the demand stuff, which is, typically demand starts to move before the labor market cracks. The labor market tends to be a lagging indicator. And you look at, the demand side of the equation and you're like, there's not really much that's a huge problem there. There's been nothing confirming demand weakness on that side. And so I think, quite honestly, I have a hard time getting a handle on exactly where this economy is moving right now. And so because of that, I kind of just say, yeah, until proven otherwise, it's just in a slow growth environment where GDP might end up coming in, again, kind of as a lot of people are projecting, maybe between 1% and 2% this year. And there's nothing exciting to the upside where you're growing, the fastest economy ever. There's nothing, horrible where this is some deep recession that is suddenly emerging. It just kind of looks like muddling through because you don't have a ton of stuff pointing convincingly in one direction right now.
The Fed works through demand. It has control over the supply of money. It uses that to target a short-term interest rate called Fed funds. That's the one we always talk about, which in turn sets a floor under bank lending rates, which in turn determines how much banks lend to firms and people. The Fed, you could think of the Fed as controlling a variable you like to talk a lot about, Chuck, and with good reason, nominal GDP. It's not perfect, but the Fed, for our purposes, we could say controls nominal GDP. How fast do you... Now, there was a time when economists were very excited about the idea of nominal GDP targeting. That doesn't get talked about that much anymore. There are lots of implementation challenges there. But it's a legitimate thing to talk about, the Fed targeting nominal GDP, and it's a useful construct. So the question is the Fed growing nominal GDP too fast, too slow, or just right? What is it growing relative to? Well, whenever you hear demand, you should be asking, well, what about supply? Supply, aggregate supply more technically, and you can think about nominal GDP as aggregate demand. Aggregate supply is just potential GDP. That's labor force growth times how much those people are producing per hour, productivity, plus whatever the Fed's inflation target is, 2%. If you do a back of the envelope, you get to about 4 to 5. That's the growth in the economy's supply, productive capacity, potential GDP said differently.
At least for the last 10 to 15 years, that's kind of where it's
potential
been.
GDP has come down because that's determined by structural forces. Which
we're not having as many kids, things like that.
Demography is important. Immigration is important to that, which you and Mike Armstrong talk a lot about on this show. So the question is, does the Fed need to boost nominal GDP? Is it that which is slowing down? And I think you just, in your setup to this segment, illustrated perfectly that no, it's not. We don't really have a nominal GDP problem, it seems. We may have a supply side problem. Go ahead.
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, sorry. I always assume that I should be stopping somewhere and coming up for air. So we may have a supply side problem, in which case, if the Fed pushes demand too hard when supply is going in the opposite direction, think of a supply side problem as being equivalent to stagflation. When supply is shrinking, the prices are going up, the economy is slowing. The Fed can't do anything to combat that in the short term anyway. This is why they're in quite a pickle.
And I think that the problem is, like, you try to reconcile the different things that would indicate nominal GDP and where it's going. And on one hand, the one that I love to use is aggregate payrolls, because I think it's a good proxy for, hey, how much stuff can people buy? And given that, consumer demand is, a big part of the economy, you sit there and you say, okay, you're seeing some signs that might be weakening a little bit. But on the other hand, the actual spending data isn't meshing with this, and we're seeing consumer spending continuing to move along. Actually, the last couple months at kind of an accelerating clip. The other piece is when you look at FICA receipts, so the amount of Social Security tax that's withheld from paychecks and things like that, those are actually increasing at a faster pace the last couple months as well. Which, nothing's really pointing in the same direction. And so this is why the next few months, it's the third year in a row where this has been the case. We're heading into the fall saying this is going to tell us where we're going, because one of two things is going to happen. Either the FICA withholding and the retail sales and the credit card data is going to worsen over the next few months, and that says, okay, the economy is slowing, or the jobs picture, like the aggregate payrolls data and the jobs picture has to start to improve.
Yeah.
Because if you're actually seeing FICA withholding up 7% year over year for like 6 months in a row, that means people are going to be spending that money. Why are you cutting your workforce into more consumer spending? And so you start to see hiring pick up again.
The Fed has to act in advance of any prospective slowdown, because monetary policy takes time to work its way into the economy because of the channels through which it gets transmitted into the economy. But it is taking a gamble here in easing, perhaps aggressively, because we don't know that the economy is weakening. We do know that inflation is elevated, underlying inflation, the trend in inflation, that is. It's well above their target. We can quibble about whether their target should be 2%, but it is. And we do know that the supply side of the economy is probably being buffeted by shocks from tariffs and from deportation policy. You could say you like those policies. I'm not judging them. I'm saying simply they serve to constrict supply. So think about supply shrinking. That is stagflationary. It reduces potential output, at the same time putting upward pressure on prices. If the Fed pushes too hard on the gas, or any harder than it's pushing today on the gas, financial conditions are quite loose. You run the risk of a repeat of the 70s, perhaps without the oil price shocks. People hear parallels to the 70s. They automatically think of the twin peaks of inflation in 73, 74, and then 79 to 81. I'm overlapping decades a little bit here. Those were unique due to OPEC. But take those out, and you still have very high underlying inflation throughout the course of the decade, because the Fed made the same mistakes that it seems to be making now, mistaking a supply problem for a demand problem, said differently, overestimating the economy's productive capacity. You get that nagging feeling, or at least I do.
Let's take a quick break. When we return, let's talk a little bit about what Jamie Dimon has to say about the U.S. economy right after this.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Like us on YouTube and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Artificial intelligence is changing the way companies invest and how markets move. Add to that global trends like international outperformance, a weakening dollar, and shifting bond yields, and you've got a complex landscape for investors. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we're hosting 2 financial seminars this fall to help you understand what it all means. Join us at Margaritaville Resort, Cape Cod on October 9th, or at the Showcase Superlux in Chestnut Hill on October 16th. Call 800-393-4001 to reserve your seat. We'll talk about how diversification and preparation may help you navigate uncertainty so your plan is ready. Don't miss this chance to get a clearer picture of your financial future. Register today by calling 800-393-4001 or on our website, armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Your retirement savings and life insurance benefits are more than numbers. They're part of the legacy you've worked hard to build. And with the right plan, you can help protect them for the people you love. This month's free guide from Cushing & Dolan, IRA and life insurance planning, estate tax strategies, and nursing home protection shows how naming your estate the beneficiary of your IRA or life insurance can help reduce estate taxes and protect assets from nursing home costs, and still give your spouse access when it's needed most. It's a straightforward strategy that can provide lasting benefits for you and your family. You'll learn how this approach can fit into your overall estate plan and why it may offer more flexibility than other options. Get your free copy today by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or request the guide online right now at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Mark Vonner is the CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, having served for nearly 20 years, and we are so thrilled to have him and his company as a key partner and the presenting sponsor of the DAV 5K Boston. Mark comes from a proud military family, including his father Victor and his brother Timmy. Mark talks often about how serving his country was one of the greatest achievements of his life, and that's one of the key reasons that he chooses to give back to this special community. Mark is honored to continue his legacy that his father started when he built Veterans Development Corporation. Working to help many disabled veterans and their families has become a lifelong goal for Mark, and it's why he's taken the time to fully support the DAV Department of Massachusetts. You can join Mark Vonner and Veterans Development Corporation and help our great American heroes today by making a donation or becoming a sponsor. Simply visit DAV5K.Boston. That's DAV5K.Boston.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
This is your home for the most comprehensive coverage of the economy and the trends on Wall Street. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Register now for this year's DAV 5K on Saturday, November 8th at Castle Island before it sells out. Slots are going quickly, so if you'd like to take part, please visit DAV5K.Boston to secure your spot. Your participation helps provide vital services like free transportation to medical appointments and safe housing for single veterans and their families. Sign up or donate today at DAV5K.Boston. That's DAV5K.Boston.
Jamie Dimon had an interview with CNBC yesterday, and he said, quote, "The economy is weakening. Whether that's on the way to recession or just weakening, I don't know." Okay. What else?
I've stopped, when a headline says Jamie Dimon says something, I stop reading.
This was going to be the next place that I go.
Yeah, sorry.
Jamie Dimon.
It's not his job.
It's not what he does. He's not a macro forecaster.
Right.
His bones were cut as a risk manager in the banking industry. And when you're a risk manager, you're always on the lookout for what could go wrong. And I think that just when he talks, he has, kind of a way of saying that pretty strongly, like here's like something that could go wrong. Back in 2022, he said, there was a hurricane coming for the U.S. economy. That hurricane never hit land. Basically, like every fall, he comes out and is like, there's something bad that's going to happen in the U.S. economy, and every fall it doesn't happen. I'm not saying that this time won't be different. Maybe it could be, but I don't think there's that much signal in how Dimon talks about the economy as it relates to where the economy actually goes.
No, he's always pretty non-specific. I think he suffers from the same, hubris that a lot of very successful people do. They start to assume that they are divinely favored or something, and that they can opine on anything. They become philosophers as they get older. Ray Dalio is a good example of this. He writes books covering topics that a lot of people have thought about for decades, doesn't cite any previous work. He just likes to pontificate.
I used to think Dalio was the smartest guy in the room, and now I think he's just in the room.
He's not. He's a guy in the room.
He's fine. I'm not saying he's a dummy.
He should be listened to.
The guy has made hundreds of billions of dollars more than I ever have. So the guy understands markets and the economy. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I don't think he has any unique insight as to what's actually going on in the economy.
Yeah, he just doesn't cite previous work. It's embarrassing to listen to him sometimes because he talks about things as if he's the first person to ever stumble on the topic. And it's been pretty well explored. And a lot of his assumptions about the way the economy works are things that wouldn't get you a passing grade in an undergraduate econ course. And I'm not saying economists know exactly obviously what the future holds. They don't. They're terrible at making predictions, but they're really good at describing relationships generally and talking about how the economy works, much like your doctor is good at telling you how your body works and how things are likely to, say, interact with other things you are doing, but bad at making forecasts other than very general forecasts.
Lisa Cook, at least for now, is going to be able to maintain her seat on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. Judge Cobb in D.C. granted Cook's request for a temporary restraining order to stay on the board for now. And basically, this is likely to be appealed by the Trump administration in pretty short order, I would imagine before the end of the day, at the very least, by tomorrow. And this is something that is going to make its way to the Supreme Court pretty quickly, in my opinion. And again, I don't think you know exactly what is going to happen here, just because, again, I'm not a preeminent legal scholar, and I don't possess any, specific information about, exactly how the Supreme Court is going to rule in this. But based on what they've said earlier this year, it would seem more likely than not that, at least at this point, based on what is alleged and not proven, and also based on the timeline laid out by the judge, something that happened prior to Cook joining the Fed, it would seem to me that it's pretty likely that Cook is able to retain her seat on the board for now, though that might not be permanent, depending on how things evolve over the next 6 to 12 months with that investigation and other, follow-ups and things like that.
I think it's just a matter of time before the White House gets its way on monetary policy. So this might be a short-term victory for people that favor Fed independence, or at least find the idea of the president removing somebody, maybe on a flimsy pretext. And I don't know that it's flimsy in this case. If she falls, I don't want to get into that, but you can't avoid veering into it slightly because she may have broken the law, in which case
a few different things can be true here. It's very possible that she broke the law. It's very possible that she might be too big of a distraction to be able to serve on the Fed board, but it's also possible that because of the circumstances of how this happened and the timing and everything, that it might not be grounds for removal from that position. You can hold all of these different views at the same time and still get to a point where you say, I don't know exactly how this is going to end up playing out in the long run.
I don't think this is how the issue of Fed independence should be adjudicated, and I don't mean as in her case getting adjudicated. Sure. I mean, what do we want as a society, as a polity, in terms of our Federal Reserve and its relationship to politicians? It's time to have that discussion. We need to start sort of de novo. What is the Fed? What does it do? Who do we want pulling the levers? There's a legitimate argument to be made that the president should get his way when it comes to monetary policy. I don't think I agree with it, but I'm sort of sympathetic. And then let the chips fall. If he's an incompetent monetary policy maker, then he'll suffer at the polls, or his party will. So that may seem strange coming from me because I sort of view Fed independence as sacrosanct, but I also acknowledge that this is a democracy. My point is we need to be having this conversation, and ultimately Congress has to settle the issue. It shouldn't come down to what the Supreme Court decides in the case of one governor. There are bigger things at stake here.
I don't love the "this is a democracy" argument. By that extension, shouldn't we all vote on Fed policy then?
We do indirectly through our elected representatives.
Well, then shouldn't we do it directly? Eventually you get to a point where we just can't vote on everything. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, it's Wall Street Watch and Ask Todd.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. One of the biggest risks to retirement isn't just market volatility, it's longevity. People are living 25 to 30 years after they stop working, and that gives inflation plenty of time to work against you. At just 3% inflation, your expenses double in about 23 years. Add to that the fact that healthcare costs typically rise faster than general inflation, and your later years could be your most expensive. Without a plan, that combination can put real pressure on your savings. That's why we've put together a brand new guide called Inflation in Your Retirement Plan. The guide shows you ways to balance longevity risk with rising costs and strategies that may help you make your money last through decades of retirement. Call 800-393-4001 to get your free copy today. 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Tucker Silva with the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke, a partner with the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with a master's in taxation. And today we're talking about choosing beneficiaries for your IRA. Todd, what is the best way to deal with qualified retirement plan assets, and can they be transferred to these irrevocable Medicaid trusts?
So this is a tough asset in general. When you're dealing with retirement plan assets, it's difficult from an estate planning standpoint or a Medicaid planning standpoint to deal with them. Why? Because they have both an income tax component and an estate tax component, right? They're taxable when you take them out, and when you die, they're subject to your estate tax. So the general way to do this would be, one, you can name the spouse as the beneficiary of the IRA, or you can name the kids the beneficiary of the IRA, or sometimes you can name the trust the beneficiary or the estate the beneficiary. But it all depends on the size of your estate, the size of the IRA. But the one thing you really can't do is you can't take the asset and transfer it to the irrevocable trust or revocable trust while you're living. Otherwise, it will create a income taxable event. So tough to plan for those in advance unless you name the estate the beneficiary.
Educate yourself about the estate planning process. Request your free copy of Todd's brand new guide called Why Name Your Estate an IRA Beneficiary right now by calling 866-848-5699. That's 848-5699, or you can request a copy from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Time now for Wall Street Watch. A complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Markets in mixed territory after the first of two inflation readings were posted, or going to be posted this week. This morning we saw the producer price index where it revealed wholesale prices fell 0.1% last month, better than expectations of a 0.3% increase. Tomorrow morning we'll get a look at the all-important consumer price index. Right now the Dow is down by 0.3%. S&P 500 is up just over 0.5% higher. NASDAQ up 0.5% as well. Russell 2000 is up 0.4%. 10-year Treasury yield is down 1 basis point at 4.059%, and crude oil is up just over 1% higher, trading at $63.44 a barrel. Oracle surging 40% after the software company forecasted huge gains in cloud infrastructure revenue, where CEO Safra Catz said she expects several more multi-billion dollar customers in the next few months. Meanwhile, meme stock and video game retailer GameStop is climbing 7% after it reported a jump in quarterly profit and said the value of its Bitcoin holdings topped $500 million in the previous quarter. Elsewhere, Wegovy and Ozempic maker Novo Nordisk said it plans to cut 9,000 jobs. The company also cut its guidance for the second time in 6 weeks. That stock is actually up nearly 1%. Chewy shares retreating 16% after the online pet products retailer posted a decline in quarterly profit. Online brokerage Robinhood announced it will launch its own social media network that will allow users to post their trades. Robinhood stock is up 3%. And online payments provider Klarna is set to IPO at $40 a share, above the expected range. I'm Tucker Silva, and that is Wall Street Watch.
This is Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. If you have an existing estate plan or are in the market for one, Todd Lutzke is here to answer your questions and help you plan for later life. Ask Todd is presented by Cushing & Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 35 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Visit CushingDolan.com. Now, here's Todd Lutzke.
Todd Lutzke joins us now for Ask Todd, which is your chance to ask Todd your estate planning questions live on air right now. Phone lines are wide open, all clear for you at 888-205-2263. That is the number to call to ask Todd your estate planning questions right now on air. Again, 888-205-2263 is the number. One more time. It is 888-205-2263. A reminder, we can usually get through a couple calls, so make sure that you call early in order to get in line to speak with Todd right now. That number again is 888-205-2263. Mr. Lutzke, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. How about yourself?
Good. I was out at the bar the other night.
Yeah?
And this Mobius strip walked in. And it was crying, and the bartender said, "Hey, what's wrong, buddy?" And the Mobius strip goes, "Where do I even begin?"
That's true.
And it was very sad, very sad. Todd, I want to talk to you about estate taxes within the concept of naming beneficiaries.
Yeah.
Is there anything that people can do as it relates to beneficiaries either on investment accounts, insurance products, or anything else that can help with estate taxes as far as how they're naming those bennies?
Yeah, I think you need to think about a lot. You have to think about all of your assets, really. So when you're doing your estate plan, if you're dealing with and by the way, the answer will vary depending on whether it's a revocable trust situation or an irrevocable trust situation. So there can be some differences. But, like if you're funding your revocable trust, you probably want to change the owner, not necessarily the beneficiary, right? So the owner on your bank accounts, the owner on your investment accounts, the owner on, I guess that's it, brokerage investment accounts, bank accounts, CDs. The owner can be the trust. Don't really need to get into beneficiaries, really, because you want it to be owned by the trust, and then the language of the trust is going to sort of dictate where those assets go. So, for example, I had a client who was convinced all they needed, they were not married, but they had certain people that they wanted to take care of and certain nieces and nephews, etc., whole laundry list of people. And they said, all we really need to do is name beneficiaries. We don't need to bother because we're married, but we don't have any kids. I said, well, then you're going to have to run around and make sure that, if you spend money out of one account and then spend money out of another account, and then that particular person who was a beneficiary on that account doesn't get anything, and you got to keep track all the time of where the money is. I mean, that's just not helpful. But if you just put all those assets in a revocable trust, now spend whatever you want to spend, because everybody in the trust will benefit from every dollar that's in there from every account. Right? And it's great. You don't even name dollar amounts. You name percentages. So if the tide rises, everybody gets a little more. If the tide shrinks, everybody gets a little less. So it's a wonderful way of doing it. It's easy. It's simple. Change the owner. Don't need to worry about the beneficiary. Not for IRAs. Not for 401ks or any qualified retirement account. And now, by the way, for an irrevocable trust, it's similar. To the extent I'm putting things in the trust, I don't need to name a beneficiary. I need to just change the owner. However, for IRAs and or life insurance, you want to think, if you're concerned about protecting assets from the nursing home, then you need to think about naming the beneficiary of those items something. So, revocable or irrevocable, the beneficiary of an IRA is generally a spouse, and the contingent is generally kids or a trust. You can name a trust a beneficiary when you die. If you're concerned about nursing home planning and you want to protect the asset from a nursing home, then there are ways and times and rules, but you can name the estate the beneficiary of the IRA first ahead of the spouse and get all kinds of other nursing home planning benefits. So much to talk about. It was a great question, Chuck, but I can't even, that just tip of the iceberg.
Talking with Todd Lutzke from Cushing and Dolan. You've got questions for Todd. This is your chance to ask them. 888-205-2263 is the number. We do still have room on the phone lines, so get calling to ask Todd your questions right now, because we're going to take a quick break, and then it is right to your questions with Todd. That number is 888-205-2263. One last time, that is 888-205-2263.
Ask Todd with Todd Lutzke every Wednesday at 10:30, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. This fall, why just watch the leaves change when you could watch the sunset over turquoise waters? The U.S. Virgin Islands are your perfect fall escape. Set sail on the sparkling blue sea, snorkel colorful reefs, kayak through calm lagoons, or try to reel in the big one with world-class sport fishing. Then, explore Charlotte Amalie, the capital of St. Thomas, with its historic streets and duty-free shopping. Ferry to St. John's Virgin Islands National Park for hiking and secluded beaches. And finally, experience the culture, festivals, and rum of St. Croix. 3 incredible islands, countless experiences, and something for everyone to enjoy. With easy travel from New England, no passport required for U.S. citizens, and no money to exchange, paradise is closer than you think. So why wait? This can be the season you fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands in America's Caribbean. the U.S. Virgin Islands. Plan your getaway now at visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com. Your retirement savings and life insurance benefits are more than numbers. They're part of the legacy you've worked hard to build. And with the right plan, you can help protect them for the people you love. This month's free guide from Cushing & Dolan, IRA and life insurance planning, estate tax strategies, and nursing home protection shows how naming your estate the beneficiary of your IRA or life insurance can help reduce estate taxes and protect assets from nursing home costs, and still give your spouse access when it's needed most. It's a straightforward strategy that can provide lasting benefits for you and your family. You'll learn how this approach can fit into your overall estate plan and why it may offer more flexibility than other options. Get your free copy today by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or request the guide online right now at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Artificial intelligence is changing the way companies invest and how markets move. Add to that global trends like international outperformance, a weakening dollar, and shifting bond yields, and you've got a complex landscape for investors. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we're hosting 2 financial seminars this fall to help you understand what it all means. Join us at Margaritaville Resort, Cape Cod on October 9th, or at the Showcase Superlux in Chestnut Hill on October 16th. Call 800-393-4001 to reserve your seat. We'll talk about how diversification and preparation may help you navigate uncertainty so your plan is ready. Don't miss this chance to get a clearer picture of your financial future. Register today by calling 800-393-4001 or on our website, armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
You're listening to Ask Todd with Todd Lutzke on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, let's get right to your questions with Todd Lutzke. First up, we've got Anna in Massachusetts. Anna, what's your question for Todd?
I'd like to know when both spouses have an irrevocable trust and the first spouse died, how does the second spouse have access to the past or the deceased spouse's assets? How does that work?
So are you suggesting that we have a married couple and they're doing one joint irrevocable Medicaid type trust, nursing home protection trust, or are we doing two separate trusts, one for husband and wife?
Each spouse has their own irrevocable trust.
Got it. And is the irrevocable trust designed to protect assets from the nursing home? I assume, right?
I don't know about that. It's just I don't want to care about that. I just want to know when the first spouse dies, if I die tomorrow, does my husband have access to the assets in my trust? Okay, so first and foremost, just to help everybody understand that you would never do an irrevocable trust for, to keep control over it if you're giving things away outside your estate. So I assume the value of this estate is probably under $5 million, correct? Yes.
Okay. So then you folks would be doing probably, if you don't care about nursing home, it would be a revocable trust, and it would be joint. But to your question, even if it's a joint revocable trust while you're living, and that wasn't your question, you're both in control, but then let's say your husband dies, and then how would you have access to the assets that are in this once joint revocable trust that now automatically becomes irrevocable? That's correct. So as soon as one dies, it becomes irrevocable, and the surviving spouse, let's say it's you, Anna, would become the trustee. So now you are the sole trustee when before it was you and your husband. And so now that you're the sole trustee, you read the language of the trust to determine the access that you have. So with a revocable trust that is now irrevocable, there'd be two buckets in there. Two, maybe three buckets. A marital share, a state marital share, and a remainder share. And then these buckets are going to be filled with the assets that were in the overall joint trust. So if you had $3 million of stuff in the trust when you were alive, that $3 million is now sprinkled between these three buckets, column A, B, and C. The trustee of which is Anna. So you're in charge, Anna. And then you need to read the language. So if it's $3 million, I can tell you that $2 million would be in the C bucket, and $1 million would be in the B bucket, and the A bucket would be empty. That is driven by the value, by the estate tax laws that are in place. So in Massachusetts, you can shelter $2 million each. That's why the $2 million ended up in the C bucket, because it equals the mass exemption, and the amount over the $2 million, but under the the 13.9 million would end up in the B bucket. So that's why the $1 million is there. Now, Anna, you're probably saying, okay, there's $3 million there, Todd, but what can I do with it? Well, you're in charge. You get to take you manage it, you invest it, you buy and sell stocks and bonds, you buy and sell real estate, and you can take out all the income because the trust says you're entitled to the income. And it says you can take out the $3 million, which is principal, but you're supposed to take it as you need it to maintain your standard of living that you enjoyed when your husband was alive. Follow those rules. The assets are still yours, but the design of the trust will shelter the assets from estate taxes. So big answer to your question, but I wanted you to hope that helps. Hope that helps everybody. But folks, that's not the only items we talk about. That's great for what's in the trust, but the guide we're giving away deals with life insurance and IRAs, which are a little more complicated because they can't go into the trust right away. So if you're concerned about nursing home planning and you're married, right, this guide is for you because it offers guidance on how to protect an IRA. Well, basically naming the estate the IRA beneficiary is going to help you with not only life insurance, but with IRAs. It will provide nursing home protection. It will shelter from the costs of estate taxes, and it will be done without providing adverse income tax consequences. And that's the real wild card with IRA. So learn how to do this, folks. If you're doing estate planning and concerned about the nursing home, call and get this guide, 866-848-5699 or legalexchangeshow.com, 866-848-5699 or legalexchangeshow.com.
Let's go now to Norman in Portland. Norman, what is your question for Todd Lutzke?
Oh, hi. I was wondering how I tell if the transfer on death language has been transferred to the financial institutions that are in my revocable trust. And the lawyer said the girl Friday would do it. And I was just wondering if she ever did. And I guess I should just call, but is that what you do?
Well, let me ask you a couple questions so I can follow this. So, Norman, are you married?
Yes.
And you did a revocable trust, you and your wife?
Yes.
Okay. And the revocable trust needs to have assets put in it. That's what just so everybody understands what we're talking about. We're suggesting that you fund the trust with your brokerage account, with your bank account. And I totally agree. And funding the trust, I would stay, if it's a revocable trust, like what Chuck was asking earlier in the show, I would stay away from transfers on death. There's no need to do that, right? Why not just change the owner on the account, on the bank account, on the brokerage account? Make the owner the name of the trust. So like if I've done a trust and I'm married and it's a joint revocable trust, the name on my brokerage account will be Lutsky Family Trust. Bank account, Lutsky Family Trust. And then you don't have to worry about who the beneficiary is because the trust owns it, and the trust's language will say where all the assets of the trust go when you die, right? So if we both die, my wife and I, everything is equally to our kids, well, everything that's owned by the trust will be divided amongst the children, and you're completely covered. So that's probably my advice. And yes, to your question, yeah, call them, ask them if they did it, or send a statement to you. The next statement you get, take a look at it and see if it says, Norman Family Trust or whatever the name is on your trust. If it says that, then you know that particular asset is in that trust.
Todd, we were talking earlier about beneficiaries. Any last items that you want to add as it relates to that earlier conversation we were having? Yeah, and again, it's kind of good to talk about the Norman case, right? He was just talking about doing that, right? So that's how you do it for revocable trusts. And we talked, it's similar for an irrevocable trust, but kind of like, I think that the wild card is what this guide is really all about, and it's the IRAs of the world and the life insurance policies of the world. So, folks, when you're dealing with those, if you're thinking about nursing home protection, instead of making the life insurance policy, the benefit, you never change the owner, you don't need to, but you change the life insurance beneficiary. Instead of putting it in the trust, you might put it into the estate of, kind of what we were talking about, and that way it will flow into this testamentary trust and be protected for the surviving spouse from nursing homes, but at the same time allow access to it and shelter it for estate taxes. So those are the tricky assets. Mr. Lutsky, thank you so much for joining us today. Always a pleasure.
This has been Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Ask Todd with Todd Lutsky has been presented by Cushing & Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 30 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Call 800-393-4001 or visit CushingDolan.com. The views expressed in this segment are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Armstrong Advisory does not provide any legal or tax advice. Please consult with your legal or tax advisor on such matters. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Still more to come as we head towards the second hour. We're going to be talking a little bit about Christopher Waller, one of the candidates to be the next Fed chair. Also, Oracle stock is up north of 30% today, actually now north of 40%. We'll talk about what is driving them to new all-time highs. And then we're also going to be talking with Trip Mickle from the New York Times about Apple's announcement yesterday as it relates to their new iPhones and everything. Anything exciting or just a little bit of an iteration forward? All that and more is coming up in Hour 2.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out?
but you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense. Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM. Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
This fall, why just watch the leaves change when you could watch the sunset over turquoise waters? The U.S. Virgin Islands are your perfect fall escape. Set sail on the sparkling blue sea, snorkel colorful reefs, kayak through calm lagoons, or try to reel in the big one with world-class sport fishing. Then, explore Charlotte-Amalie, the capital of St. Thomas, with its historic streets and duty-free shopping. Ferry to St. John's Virgin Islands National Park for hiking and secluded beaches. And finally, experience the culture, festivals, and rum of St. Croix. 3 incredible islands, countless experiences, and something for everyone to enjoy. With easy travel from New England, no passport required for U.S. citizens, and no money to exchange, paradise is closer than you think. So why wait? This can be the season you fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands in America's Caribbean. The U.S. Virgin Islands. Plan your getaway now at visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
Mark Vonner is the CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, having served for nearly 20 years, and we are so thrilled to have him and his company as a key partner and the presenting sponsor of the DAV 5K Boston. Mark comes from a proud military family, including his father Victor and his brother Timmy. Mark talks often about how serving his country was one of the greatest achievements of his life, and that's one of the key reasons that he chooses to give back to this special community. Mark is honored to continue his legacy that his father started when he built Veterans Development Corporation. Working to help many disabled veterans and their families has become a lifelong goal for Mark, and it's why he's taken the time to fully support the DAV Department of Massachusetts. You can join Mark Vonner and Veterans Development Corporation and help our great American heroes today by making a donation or becoming a sponsor. Simply visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
This month's free guide from Cushing & Dolan is called IRA and Life Insurance Planning, Estate Tax Strategies and Nursing Home Protection. Learn how naming your estate a beneficiary can reduce estate taxes, protect assets from nursing home costs, and avoid the 5-year Medicaid waiting period. Call 866-848-5699 to get your free guide today, or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we've got a guide available this month on the topic of inflation and your retirement plan. Mike, a lot of people listening might be familiar with the idea of the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, but rare is it that we find someone whose own personal rate of inflation exactly matches the CPI consistently.
Of course, we all have different spending habits. We all live in different parts of the country and have different effects of inflation. But I think a great example here, Chuck, is during a large portion of the 2010s decade, CPI was relatively in control, and people got very little in the way of increases on their Social Security. However, healthcare inflation was pretty hot, and Medicare prices went up pretty dramatically during that period of time. And that is one area that dramatically affects retirees that doesn't play into CPI all that much and resulted in people seeing their Social Securities just not growing a whole lot during that 2010 decade. And so you really do have to evaluate the risk of, hey, here are my spending categories, and how might things like changes to the labor market or changes to energy markets, if I live here in the Northeast and I can't get natural gas and I'm instead relying on oil prices, how could those changes really affect my future finances?
Folks, our guide this month is titled Inflation in Your Retirement Plan, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. You can also request it online at armstrongadvisory.com. The guide again is Inflation in Your Retirement Plan, and that phone number to call is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti.
Chuck, Mark, and Tucker with you, and we've got markets rallying today, largely on the back of some earnings that were fine from Oracle, but the guidance they gave was just monstrous, and so Oracle stock, again, we're going to touch on this, but it's up 41% today, which in actual dollar terms, just to put this in perspective, you're talking about a company that added about $280 billion in market cap in a single day. And now is almost $1 trillion market cap. It's insane. I mean, this was a company that, quite honestly, 5-6 years ago, like, yes, they were around. They were still, a company, but they were kind of, considered a has-been when it came to the tech sector.
Exactly.
They were fine. They were profitable. They were doing their thing. And today, you've got them, potentially becoming, the next member of the $1 trillion club sometime in the next couple days, if not today, depending on how the rest of the day goes. So with that, you currently have the Dow off 251 points because Oracle is not in the Dow. You've got the S&P 500 up 29 points and the NASDAQ Composite up 102 points, both of those about 0.5%. And so you say, why are those up only, 0.5%? And the answer is, well, the money to bid up Oracle had to come from somewhere, and basically investors are pulling from elsewhere in tech right now. Apple's down 3%, Amazon's down 2%, Salesforce is down 2%, Meta's down 1%, and so, other tech and tech-adjacent companies are getting sold in order to bid up Oracle here. On the bond side of things, pretty quiet day, but slightly lower rates on the 10-year, which is now at 4.063%, down 1.1 basis points. When we take a look at commodity markets, we got oil up 66 cents a barrel on West Texas Intermediate to 63.29. Just not a whole lot of noise there, just kind of chopping around low to mid-60s as it's been for a while. And we've got gold up another $4.70 an ounce to 36.87 on the nose. No new all-time high for gold today, but hey, every day, there's a reason why they have 24 hours in the day, and it's so that you can see if gold's going to get to a new all-time high. And the clock hasn't struck midnight yet, so we'll see where we go today. Want to kick this hour off with a little bit of a chat about Christopher Waller. Wall Street Journal has a profile piece out about him, and specifically, kind of talking up the fact that, hey, he has largely, in my opinion, since being named to the Federal Reserve Board of Governors back in 2020 by President Trump at the time, I think that Waller has been the member of the Board of Governors who has been most plugged in and most accurate when it comes to forecasting where the economy was, and is going. And in my opinion, this, along with his, the fact that he's already on the Board of Governors, in my mind, should give him a leg up to be the next Fed chair. Whether he is or not, obviously, is not something that we know right now. But I think that when you look at Waller, he's someone who, again, recently has just seemed to be very plugged in and locked into where this economy is, and as such, I think would be a shoo-in for the job if President Trump ended up naming him.
Well, among the main contenders, he's the only serious monetary policy researcher. His early work, somewhat ironically, because Trump wants to control the Fed. I'm not judging it. But it's obvious. If Trump could, he would be responsible for printing money.
Sure.
But he knows he can't quite get away with that right now, so he's going for this incremental approach. But Waller's research, done mainly in the early 90s when he was most active in that.
He was at the St. Louis Fed back then, right?
I don't know. He was the head of the econ department at Notre Dame more recently. He probably had multiple Fed research stints. A lot of these PhD researchers, that's a normal career path for them. But the work of his that
the answer's yes.
Oh, thanks. Thank you both. The work I'm familiar with is his work on institutional a design for central banks that ensures that they can operate credibly and independently. He made significant contributions to the literature on what type of central banker you want to pick and how you want to design your central bank. I bring it up because it's ironic, because he may be the appointee of someone who effectively views him as a puppet. Will he be willing to kind of surrender his, I don't want to say conviction, I can't speak for him, I don't know him, but I assume, given the results of his research, that he feels like independence is key to stable inflation and thus stable output, because those two things are connected.
And I think it raised the question of, look, Waller right now is talking about, he's been one of the very outspoken members of the Fed saying we need to be cutting interest rates. And he's done so in a way that I think maintains his independence and credibility, and that he's been talking about this kind of for the last year, like, hey, guys, the labor market's weaker than we think, and we need to be doing something on this. He was one of the leading voices on this last year as well. This is not, an about face that he made this spring or this summer where he suddenly said, hey, guys, like now I think that, we need to be cutting. This has been his position pretty consistently since last year. And I think with Waller, as with any of these candidates, the question is, it's the Scott Bessent conundrum that you have, which is this time last year, Bessent was writing op-eds talking about, hey, I can't believe the Treasury's issuing all this short-term debt, like they're deliberately doing it to try to keep long-term interest rates low. Anyone who's serious wouldn't be doing that. I can't believe they're doing this. And then Bessent comes in, takes a look around, like sees the lay of the land, and is like, yep, I'm going to keep doing exactly that. Because he realized, like, okay, when push comes to shove, I have to pay the bills for the United States, and this is the best way to do it, based on, what my goals are and everything. And so with Waller, and not just Waller, but the other guys who are running for the position effectively, you got the two Kevins out there, Warsh and Hassett, that are both in the running as well. And it's one thing leading up to, a nomination for a position to say, hey, I think we should be doing this. When push comes to shove and you're actually in the big chair, do you look around, realize the real politique of the situation and say, you know what? Yeah, we can probably cut this fall, but hey, if the economy starts to rebound in Q1 of next year, and with it, there's a rebound in inflation and growth and all the stuff that goes along with that, yeah, you better believe I'm going to be hiking because I need to do what's right in this situation. Otherwise, history is not going to remember me very well as the Fed chair that just sat in my hands while inflation rose.
Yeah, he's been a little more vocal about cutting rates given the political backdrop than I would be comfortable with. I do question whether he's behaving opportunistically.
Well, of course he is. I mean, look, I don't think that's a bad thing, quite honestly.
That he's openly vying for the position, you mean?
This is what happens with everyone who openly vies for all of these positions. When you are in the running to be Fed chair, do you think, A, that you don't have any ego, and B, that you haven't learned how to play the game?
Yeah, I'm not judging it in a moral sense. I'm saying if his objective is to preserve Fed independence, he could distance himself a little bit more from the regime, the prevailing political regime, the Trump administration, than he has done. I was disappointed he dissented publicly. I know his views are well-founded. A reasonable person can make arguments that the economy is weakening, etc. I just thought his vocal advocacy for relaxing monetary policy and his persistent advocacy of it struck me as a little bit opportunistic, but like you say, he's only human. One hopes that if he, by the way, Warsh is a lightweight. Bessent doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to monetary policy. Hassett is not a lightweight. Monetary policy is not his area. He knows how to read a paper in economics. Waller, of the four, I know Bessent's not in the running anymore, but I grouped him in there since he pops off, he sounds off on monetary matters routinely. Of the four, Waller is a heavyweight to begin with. He's in the mold of Clarita and Plosser, who recently passed away, God rest his soul, and a number of other academics who served on the Federal Reserve Board in the past 25 years. Ben Bernanke, too.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're joined by Trip Mickle from the New York Times talking about Apple's announcement yesterday and what we saw.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Subscribe to our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Every dollar you've saved in retirement accounts and life insurance tells a story of hard work, smart choices, and the future you envision for your family. One way to help that story end well is to make a beneficiary choice that does more. This month's free guide from Cushing & Dolan, IRA and Life Insurance Planning, Estate Tax Strategies and Nursing Home Protection, explains how naming your estate as the beneficiary of your IRA or life insurance can add a layer of tax efficiency and nursing home protection, while still allowing your spouse access when it matters. It's about keeping more of what you've built working for your loved ones now and in the years to come. Get your free copy today by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request it online from our website, LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Artificial intelligence is changing the way companies invest and how markets move. Add to that global trends like international outperformance, a weakening dollar, and shifting bond yields, and you've got a complex landscape for investors. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we're hosting 2 financial seminars this fall to help you understand what it all means. Join us at Margaritaville Resort, Cape Cod on October 9th, or at the Showcase Superlux in Chestnut Hill on October 16th. Call 800-393-4001 to reserve your seat. We'll talk about how diversification and preparation may help you navigate uncertainty so your plan is ready. Don't miss this chance to get a clearer picture of your financial future. Register today by calling 800-393-4001 or on our website, armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
Hear the Financial Exchange every day from 11 to noon on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. Keep it here for the latest business and financial news and the trends on Wall Street. The Financial Exchange is now live on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, as promised, we are now joined by Trip Mickle from the New York Times here to talk about Apple's unveiling of new products yesterday. Trip, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're doing well. When we look at the Apple announcements from yesterday, a bunch of different products unveiled. Can you give our listeners a sense of kind of what some of the big highlights were from the announcement?
I mean, the most noteworthy thing was the introduction of really arguably the first new looking iPhone in years, probably going back to 2017. Apple yesterday introduced an new iPhone line. It's called the iPhone Air. It's about a third thinner than the iPhones we've seen in recent years. It is going to challenge people a little bit because it does have less battery life, right? You're going to give up some functionality if you go thinner, and Apple noted that. In addition to that, they just updated their existing product line. You know, they're in this period of their existence where a lot of what they do is incremental improvements, new chips, better cameras for iPhones, bigger screens for watches. AirPods Pro 3 are going to have better audio. Those type of changes that are just kind of improvements around the edges, so to speak.
Trip, here's my question for you. Who's the person out there that said, I really want to buy an iPhone right now, but one with less battery life and one that's thinner because the thinness is the thing that matters. Like, who's demanding that, I guess? Because I feel like the number one complaint of most people is, hey, my phone dies too much, and Apple went in the opposite direction here. So help me understand why they did this.
I think if I had to, wager on the type of person who's going to be buying this phone, it's probably going to be a lot of people who are in, the Apple upgrade program. They get a new phone every year, and they'll get, the maximum amount of battery performance out of that device for a year. And then they'll swap, and they'll probably start to complain as the battery life gets worse. We all know that battery life fades over the lifespan of a phone, of a device, and then they'll swap it out a year from now. And they'll do it because they want to look cool, and that phone will quote unquote look cool because it looks different than others out there. It is kind of a return to form. Excuse the pun there; it's unintended, but
I got you.
Return to form for Apple in the sense that there was a period of time where you could have a new phone, be at a party or put it on a table at a restaurant, and somebody would be like, "Oh, wow, you got the new phone. How do you like it?" Right? Like, it will allow people to have that conversation again. And I bet a lot of people who like being seen as like on the cutting edge or the front edge of technology will go out and purchase it for that reason alone.
When you look at the rest of the lineup, is it safe to say incremental improvements, but no major steps forward, or am I missing something that was noted yesterday?
No. I mean, I think that kind of captures it. I mean, the one thing that I would note from a business perspective for Apple that stood out is that with their two top line phones, which are bought by probably their most affluent customers, the iPhone Pro and the iPhone Pro Max, they increased the price by $100 each on those phones. And most analysts don't think they needed to increase the price because of, inflation in their components that go into the device. In other words, they don't think the bill of materials went up such that they needed to increase price or that tariffs pressured them to increase price. They think Apple increased price because it wants to push up its sales. And if we look back at Apple's business history, the last time they did a major price increase in 2017, they didn't increase the number of phones they sold the subsequent year, but they made a lot more money. And this is a mechanism that they'll turn to from time to time in order to make sure that their sales go up and their investors are satisfied.
One of the other things that I know, even users who aren't buying new phones will notice in the coming weeks is the rollout of the new iOS, which reportedly has a very different look. Is there any new functionality included there as well? What kind of things are people going to see?
Yeah, I mean, we're moving towards a new user interface from Apple here with the new iOS, and you're correct, it will be out in the coming weeks. It is bringing in what Apple calls, in their great marketing wisdom, liquid glass. They love their fancy turns of phrases to promote things. And in this instance, what that really means is more transparency around kind of the visual interface. So when you toggle over something or try to pull down a window, you'll be able to kind of see through the menu that comes down and that displays into what was behind it a little bit. I think early people who tested this over the summer when some beta versions of it were released were a little bit critical of kind of the way it blurred. It kind of melded like the background image with the foreground font in ways that made it hard to kind of know what you were doing. And so they did some tinkering around the edges over the course of the summer, and I'm sure it's ready for prime time now.
Fantastic. Trip, appreciate you joining us, and thank you for all the information on yesterday's announcements.
Great. Thanks for having me.
That is Trip Mickle from the New York Times talking about Apple.
All right, time for trivia here on the Financial Exchange, and today is Jack Ma's 61st birthday. In 1999, Jack Ma founded his internet company that would become the world's largest retailer in 2017. So, trivia question today. What is the name of the internet retail company started by Jack Ma? Once again, what is the name of the internet retail company started by Jack Ma? Be the sixth person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer. And you win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Once again, the sixth correct response to text us to the number 617-362-1385 will win that Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Piece here from Barron's. Stock's bull market nears 3-year anniversary. It likely has more room to run. Well, yes, that tends to be the case with stocks. They do tend to move up in the long run, and absent any kind of crisis, again, kind of secular bull markets have been the feature, not the bug, in the United States for the last 80 years. And so, yeah, if you're a betting person, generally betting on stocks to go up historically has been a better proposition than betting on them to go down.
Yeah, the argument of this piece seems to be, and this is not necessarily wrong before the fact, we'll find out, if things continue to go as they've gone, stocks will continue to go up. And I'm not really oversimplifying.
No.
Go ahead, Chuck.
No, we just got to go to break. The one time you're not looking at the clock.
But I read you, though.
Quick break here. When we come back, we got the trivia answer in Wall Street Watch.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. One of the biggest risks to retirement isn't just market volatility, it's longevity. People are living 25 to 30 years after they stop working, and that gives inflation plenty of time to work against you. At just 3% inflation, your expenses double in about 23 years. Add to that the fact that healthcare costs typically rise faster than general inflation, and your later years could be your most expensive. Without a plan, that combination can put real pressure on your savings. That's why we've put together a brand new guide called Inflation in Your Retirement Plan. The guide shows you ways to balance longevity risk with rising costs and strategies that may help you make your money last through decades of retirement. Call 800-393-4001 to get your free copy today. 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. This fall, why just watch the leaves change when you could watch the sunset over turquoise waters? The U.S. Virgin Islands are your perfect fall escape. Set sail on the sparkling blue sea, snorkel colorful reefs, kayak through calm lagoons, or try to reel in the big one with world-class sport fishing. Then, explore Charlotte Amalie, the capital of St. Thomas, with its historic streets and duty-free shopping. Ferry to St. John's Virgin Islands National Park for hiking and secluded beaches. And finally, experience the culture, festivals, and rum of St. Croix. 3 incredible islands, countless experiences, and something for everyone to enjoy. With easy travel from New England, no passport required for U.S. citizens, and no money to exchange, paradise is closer than you think. So why wait? This can be the season you fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands in America's Caribbean. The U.S. Virgin Islands. Plan your getaway now at visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
Mark Vonner is the CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, having served nearly 20 years, and we are so proud to have him and his business as a key partner and a presenting sponsor of the DAV 5K Boston. The DAV Department of Massachusetts does incredible work, and it's one of the first organizations that Mark became familiar with after his military service ended back in 1984. As Mark built his company, he knew he'd be giving back to fellow veterans who needed jobs, support services, medical supplies, and so much more. Mark works with disabled veterans every day, and it's one of the key reasons why he's such a big supporter of Dan Stack, the DAV Department of Massachusetts, and the DAV 5K Boston. You can join Mark Vonner and his team and make a donation to the DAV Department of Massachusetts or become a sponsor of the DAV 5K Boston. Simply visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke, a partner with the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with a master's in taxation. And today we're talking about choosing beneficiaries for your IRA. Todd, what is the best way to set up designated beneficiaries for qualified plan assets from both a Medicaid and estate tax planning perspective for a married couple?
Generally, for a married couple, you have several choices. The most commonly used one is you're going to make the surviving spouse the designated beneficiary. It doesn't shelter assets from estate taxes. It just passes to the surviving spouse. It avoids probate, and it's probably the best way to go from an income tax perspective, not necessarily an estate tax perspective. Another way would be you could technically name the trust the beneficiary of the IRA when you pass. That at least will help it shelter assets for estate tax purposes and still provide for the surviving spouse. But from a Medicaid perspective, it will then protect it from the nursing home, but it'll take 5 years. Perhaps the newest and best way to do this would be to name the estate the beneficiary, provided you are over age 73 or over. That way, it goes through probate into the will. It is sheltered for estate taxes. It is immediately protected from the cost of long-term care for the surviving spouse, and the surviving spouse has access to it as well.
Educate yourself about the estate planning process. Request your free copy of Todd's brand new guide, Why Name Your Estate an IRA Beneficiary, right now by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request a copy from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Time now for Wall Street Watch. A complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Markets in mixed territory after the producer price index this morning revealed wholesale prices actually fell 0.1% last month, better than expectations of a 0.3% increase. We'll get another look at inflation tomorrow morning at 8:30 when the consumer price index is released. Right now, the Dow is down by 0.6% or 290 points lower. S&P 500 is down 0.3% or 21, is up 0.3% or 21 points higher, and the Nasdaq also up by about 0.3%. Russell 2000 is flat at the moment. 10-year Treasury yield is down 2 basis points at 4.053%, and crude oil up over 1.5% higher, trading at $63.66 a barrel. Oracle surging by 42% now after the software company forecasted huge gains in cloud infrastructure revenue. The cloud giant is on pace for its best day since 1992. It is now approaching the $1 trillion market cap benchmark. More on Oracle with Chuck and Mark here in a matter of moments. Meanwhile, meme stock and video game retailer GameStop is climbing over 5% higher after it reported a jump in quarterly profit and said the value of its Bitcoin holdings topped $500 million in the previous quarter. Elsewhere, Wegovy and Ozempic maker Novo Nordisk said it plans to cut 9,000 jobs. The company also cut its guidance for the second time in 6 weeks. That stock is up nearly 1%. Chewy sinking 16% after the online pet products retailer posted a decline in quarterly profit. In online brokerage, Robinhood announced it will launch its own social media network that will allow users to post their trades. Robinhood stock is up by 2%. I'm Tucker Silva, and that is Wall Street Watch. And in the previous segment, we asked you the trivia question. What is the name of the internet retail company started by Jack Ma? That would, of course, be Alibaba. Andrew from Hyannis, Mass. is our winner today, taking home a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Congrats to Andrew. And we play trivia every day here in the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
As Tucker noted, Oracle reported earnings after the bell yesterday, and coming into the week, I'll be 100% honest. I said, look, in terms of earnings reports, there's nothing that is huge this week. I think my words were somewhere along the lines of sure, you've got Oracle, but, they're not what Microsoft and NVIDIA and, yada, yada are. And today I kind of have to, crumple up all those words on a piece of paper, eat them, and say, oops, gosh, didn't really see that coming. And the good news is I wasn't the only one who didn't see this coming, because if other people did, the stock wouldn't be up 42% today because it would have already been, priced in. So here's what happened. Oracle reported earnings, and the earnings for the current quarter actually missed on both earnings per share and revenue. They missed. But they came out and they said, hey, we now have $450 billion worth of basically what they call it is contracted revenue that has not yet been recognized. So contracts to provide cloud services. And that's up 359% from a year ago. And everyone kind of went, excuse me, you have what? And how did this just happen? What they're saying is that their cloud business, which did $10 billion in revenue last year, is going to do around $18 billion this year. And then in fiscal 27, it'll go to $32 billion. In fiscal 28, it'll go to $73 billion. In fiscal 29 to $114 billion. And in fiscal 2030 to $144 billion. So their cloud revenue, they're saying, is going to go up 14x in the next 5 years, which is insane. It's crazy. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm just saying it's crazy growth. It's basically what NVIDIA went through in the last couple of years. And so you try to piece this all together and say, okay, how is this happening? Because further sales of NVIDIA processors are no longer moving in that fashion. But Oracle, if you look at what they do, they're saying, no, we're going to have, people are going to use our cloud in order to basically provide AI services. It could be Microsoft subcontracting out some of the, cloud demand that they have. It could be whatever. But Oracle pretty much saying, yeah, this is where we're going to make our bread and butter. The question becomes, okay, is this actually new revenue somewhere else? Is this something that isn't, that no one else is pricing in? If so, where's it coming from? And so, people are just trying to figure out where's this spend going to come from, given what's already been announced by other companies and what's allocated out there. And I think that's the remaining question, but it's driving up everything today related to semis. You look at, other big semi names. NVIDIA's up 4.5% today. AMD up 3.5%. Broadcom up another 10%. CoreWeave up 18%. It's basically that entire AI ecosystem is just through the roof today. And this because people are like, oh, gee, there's is there a whole nother leg on all of this? There might be. I mean, it certainly is possible, but where is the spending going to come from is always the question that's out there. And I still don't have a good read on that, but it doesn't really matter if I have a good read on it because the stocks are absolutely rocketing today after, quite honestly, semis and AI had kind of weakened again in the last month or so. I think we had the piece, Tucker, when was it? It was sometime in the last week or two, the piece about does this mean anything about that the AI boom is over? We covered that piece about how AI stocks had been, struggling recently. And we said at the time, no, it just means they haven't done well for a few weeks. And look, this is kind of the case in point. There's, you never know what the market doesn't know out there. And in this case, it missed a ton of information. And so you've got Oracle stock up almost $300 billion on the day. It's insane. I've never seen anything like this for a company of this size.
No, given the number of analysts covering it. I'm looking at ARK Innovation, for example, a famous AI and other.
It's Kathy Wood's ETF, right? Did they even hold it?
They don't own it. I'm looking at competitors. I picked on ARK for only because they're conspicuous and vocal.
Sure.
But I'm looking at competitors. They don't own it. So my question is, how do you miss? They have contracts with OpenAI, xAI, Meta, NVIDIA, so AI and AI adjacent companies, and they're one of the few people that can make the storage for the data that these AI models train and perform other functions. So all the paraphernalia, much like the internet boom, Oracle made a lot of the paraphernalia.
Sure.
There are shades of that here. To think that they've been the beneficiary of both booms is pretty remarkable.
It's kind
of
of
course,
wild.
There was an interim period when they lost 90% of their market cap. But yeah, it is kind of wild. And how did active managers who we pay, not we as an Armstrong Advisory Group where we do our day work, but we as investors generally pay a lot of money to outperform. How did they miss this story?
Folks, if you are wondering where the economy's heading, you are not alone. GDP, we've talked about, it's growing, but tariffs, inflation, and jobs numbers are making headlines. All kinds of questions about interest rates, housing costs, policy changes, even AI. Look, it's changing how markets move. You see this today. The Armstrong Advisory Group is hosting 2 financial seminars this fall to help you make sense of it all. You can join us at Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod on October 9th, a little bit less than a month from now, or at the Showcase Superlux in Chestnut Hill on October 16th. And to reserve your seat, all you got to do is call 800-393-4001. We're going to be breaking down economic trends, market risks, different strategies that you need to plan for retirement and beyond. Whether you're talking diversification, preparation, and decision-making, all these are keys to navigating uncertainty. You can register today by calling 800-393-4001. The dates again, at Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod on October 9th and Showcase Superlux in Chestnut Hill on October 16th. Again, 800-393-4001 or go and register at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
I want to talk a little bit about the auto industry here, and specifically about Jaguar, as they are known. And basically, they've tried to go through a rebrand this year, and including getting rid of the Jaguar logo and just moving to a weird font Jaguar type. And Jaguar says that they expect only 15% of their current customers to buy their cars once the rebrand is complete. So they're saying, we know we're alienating 85% of our current customers, and we're cool with it, which is generally not a great business model because it's typically cheaper to maintain your current customers than to try to find new ones. Now, the case that Jaguar is trying to make is that their current models had fallen behind the times, and the stereotypical Jaguar owner had become, a 65-year-old that might only buy one more Jaguar from them, and so they wanted to get back into the youth market. And I got to tell you a couple things. First, whenever people try to target a market that they're not really known in, they generally do it really badly. I have 2 good examples of this, one in the auto industry. The first one I'm going to give, though, is the NFL. And the NFL a few years back decided that they wanted to try to make inroads with women. They wanted more women watching football. And instead of being like, hey, women who like football, how do we get more women to watch football? They just threw out a bunch of pink branded stuff and said, this will be what makes it work. And obviously it didn't work because that's not how any of this works. And so it was just this huge flop because they didn't actually understand what they were doing in their target audience. Another one in the auto industry, about 20 years ago, Toyota, who generally has really good decision-making on a lot of this stuff, they decided they wanted to target young people too. And they came out with a car brand called Scion, S-C-I-O-N. And it lasted maybe 5 or 6 years. They had a couple cheap, boxy-looking models. And they, came out with all these commercials that were just all these young people being Scion, Yahoo, cool, awesome. And it flopped because it turns out young people don't want to buy cars that are geared at young people. They want to feel, older and mature driving a car. And so if you try to sell a car that's, targeted at a 20-year-old, you're not going to sell because they don't want something that's targeted at them. They want to feel older. So to bring this full circle to Jaguar, Jaguar is basically doing what a combination of Toyota and the NFL did, in that they're trying to sell a car to young people by being like, ooh, look, we're hip because our new logo has some capital letters where there shouldn't be and some lowercase letters where there shouldn't be, and buy Jaguar because you're young and we're young too. And that's just not how this works.
Yeah, it's hard for a luxury brand that has a nostalgia appeal, like Cadillac or Jag, to evolve. I bring up Cadillac because I think they've done a good job of keeping personal opinion.
Right, they didn't
styling.
Have to throw everything
You
out.
know a Caddy when you see one. You still, my whole life, they've had a distinctive grille, distinctive taillights, and other little features that are indicative of something being a Caddy. Same is true in my mind of Buick and Lincoln, and I name American brands because that's what I grew up admiring. Jag, such a BMW is an example of when you see a BMW coming head on, made in any era, you know it's a Beamer.
Can we talk about BMW just for a second?
I'd love to. Yeah.
I don't know who their current stylist is. They're making some weird decisions, I gotta say. You can still recognize them, but unfortunately it's just like these two giant buck teeth driving right at you now with the new vehicles they're rolling out.
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah,
you gotta be careful with that.
I've been a big believer in, like, they've normally had like really classy, really good looking vehicles. And golly gee willikers, I'm not really sure that that's the case anymore with some of the new stuff I'm seeing coming off the line.
Yeah, you have to be faithful to some characteristics that people associate
you guys just
singularly
not look weird.
with your
It just
brand.
looks like a giant beaver coming at you now.
Yeah.
It's like the grill. The problem is what they're doing now. So the grill always used to stop just below kind of like the knee line of the car is how I describe it, like that lower bumper.
Okay.
Right? The grill was that top part. Now they've taken it, they've narrowed it and made it go all the way down, like to the foot of the car. And so it's just this narrow little bucktooth thing that's coming right at you.
Oh, so it's more vertical?
Yeah, it's like the proportions are all wrong.
Yeah, Ford tried that. I forget with which. I think the original Edsel or something had a vertical grill, and people hated it. They quickly went back to the traditional horizontal. I don't know why that comes to mind. You just have to be careful when you're messing with something that is distinctively associated with your lineup.
Let me see if I'll see if I can find a picture for you in the break. But let's go to break right now, and when we come back, we'll do some stack roulette.
Miss any of the show? The Financial Exchange Show podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Mark Vonner is the CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Mark is a career military man, having served for nearly 20 years, and we are so thrilled to have him and his company as a key partner and the presenting sponsor of the DAV 5K Boston. Mark comes from a proud military family, including his father Victor and his brother Timmy. Mark talks often about how serving his country was one of the greatest achievements of his life, and that's one of the key reasons that he chooses to give back to this special community. Mark is honored to continue his legacy that his father started when he built Veterans Development Corporation. Working to help many disabled veterans and their families has become a lifelong goal for Mark, and it's why he's taken the time to fully support the DAV Department of Massachusetts. You can join Mark Vonner and Veterans Development Corporation and help our great American heroes today by making a donation or becoming a sponsor. Simply visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Your retirement savings and life insurance benefits are more than numbers. They're part of the legacy you've worked hard to build. And with the right plan, you can help protect them for the people you love. This month's free guide from Cushing & Dolan, IRA and life insurance planning, estate tax strategies, and nursing home protection shows how naming your estate the beneficiary of your IRA or life insurance can help reduce estate taxes and protect assets from nursing home costs, and still give your spouse access when it's needed most. It's a straightforward strategy that can provide lasting benefits for you and your family. You'll learn how this approach can fit into your overall estate plan and why it may offer more flexibility than other options. Get your free copy today by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. or request the guide online right now at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Artificial intelligence is changing the way companies invest and how markets move. Add to that global trends like international outperformance, a weakening dollar, and shifting bond yields, and you've got a complex landscape for investors. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we're hosting 2 financial seminars this fall to help you understand what it all means. Join us at Margaritaville Resort, Cape Cod on October 9th, or at the Showcase Superlux in Chestnut Hill on October 16th. Call 800-393-4001 to reserve your seat. We'll talk about how diversification and preparation may help you navigate uncertainty so your plan is ready. Don't miss this chance to get a clearer picture of your financial future. Register today by calling 800-393-4001 or on our website, armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
It happens all over Massachusetts. In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit GoRedForWomen.org today to learn more.
The Financial Exchange is now available every day from 11 to noon on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. Stay informed about the latest from Wall Street, fiscal policy, and breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is live on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange brought to you by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. Looking for a getaway that's easy, warm, and unforgettable? Discover the magic of the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. Just a short flight from New England with no passport needed and no money to exchange. Soak up the sun, stroll along white sand beaches, and feel the rhythm of the heartbeat of the islands. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Plan your fall escape now at visitusvi.com. That's visit.usvi.com.
Mark, what do you got for me for Stack Roulette?
Wall Street Journal reporting that health insurance costs for businesses are expected to rise by the most in 15 years next year.
Woof.
Aon, a big consultancy that works with employers on providing benefits packages, Willis Towers Watson, better known as WTW. In fact, I don't think they go by Willis Towers Watson anymore. But anyway, are both saying that they expect coverage for health insurance to increase by 9 to 10% on average next year. They service mainly big employers, but the same forces driving that will, of course, affect smaller groups and individuals who buy through exchanges. This is obviously not good for inflation, all else equal.
No, and obviously what you hear then from employers is, okay, they go to their benefits manager and they say, how can I reduce this cost? And you generally have 2 options. You can raise deductibles, or you can push a bigger chunk of this onto your employees to handle, where you might say, okay, we used to cover 90% of the cost, now we're going to cover 80% of the cost, just as an example there. So companies rarely, eat cost increases of this magnitude on their size, and so the concern for, I think, a lot of workers would be, hey, am I either going to be seeing higher deductibles in my plan in the coming year, or is my employer going to cover less of the premium than they used to?
Right.
Those are 2 things to watch out for as you get into the new rates that are rolled out in the next month or 2.
Good advice.
We're going to take a quick break for the entire rest of the day. Tomorrow is Thursday. and that means that we're going to be doing a show. We're going to talk about the Consumer Price Index. We're going to talk about continuing jobless claims and a whole lot more, so you should tune in and listen to us because it's going to be great.